Okay, so let's talk divorce. This is Attorney Brent Bowyer talking to you from ADAM. And I want to talk to you today about a concern that a lot of our clients have at the beginning stages of a divorce, considering a divorce, and that is what happens to my house in a divorce and how to avoid losing my house when I'm getting divorced. So there are some concerns there. Uh, a lot of the clients we meet with have a house, a lot of them have children, so that's a common overlap of making decisions about what to do with the real estate, how it's going to affect my kids, how it's going to affect my life, and what we're looking at going forward. So number one is, of course, who's going to get the house in the divorce. Not something that has to be decided right away, not something that has to be decided before you file for divorce, but it's something to be thinking about long-term, big picture. What is this looking like? There's typically three choices with deciding what to do with the house, what they call the marital home, where the two of you are living. So normally the house, three choices. I'll keep it, my wife's going to keep it, or we may sell it and split the proceeds. Those are usually your three options when you're looking at getting divorced and you own a home. So to consider what I want to be doing there, I got to decide, first of all, what's my goal with the situation? What do I want to see happen? Am I looking to stay in this house? Is this a house I want to keep? Or is this something I'm sort of indifferent about, or maybe thinking I want to just sell it and move forward? Or am I open to my wife keeping the house? Is that going to work out okay for me too? So I want to kind of give those different concepts some thought myself so that I know what I want to see happen, and then start working towards that goal and what I think is best for my family as we get forward with a divorce here. So first of all, we'd want to do some kind of fact finding. We want to have a sense of what's the house worth, and we want to have a sense of how much we owe on it, what the debts are, and we want to know whose name is on these things, who's on the title, who's on the mortgage, and get a sense of what that looks like. So the mortgage might involve a mortgage, it might involve a home equity loan, whatever it might be, whatever we owe on this house, we want to have a sense of that, what's the amount, and who's on the debt. A mortgage in both names is one thing, a mortgage just in my name is another thing, a mortgage in my wife's name, or something different, of course, is another consideration. So we'd want to have a sense of that, who's the names, and we want to know what we owe. You would then want to take a look at what is the house worth. So some people have a pretty good sense of what their houses are worth, what the neighborhood is going for, what the values are. Other people have no idea. So you may look at, if you just really don't know what the house is worth, you could look at getting an appraisal or a market analysis, either of those two things, as a starting point for discussions with who's going to keep the house, what we're looking at, and who owes who what in a divorce case with real estate. So market analysis would be going to a realtor, getting their rough idea, getting an opinion of what the house is worth. Not something that necessarily is the best way to do it, but it would give you a starting point. Open the discussion of maybe you and your wife can just agree on what the value of the home is if you have a sense of what a realtor thinks it would sell for. So that's one path to look at with valuing the home. Another would be do a real estate appraisal. So you hire an appraiser, $350, $400. They look at comparable sales in the neighborhood, they look at everything that they look at, and they tell you a value. And our approach, if we're handling your divorce, would be we want to hire somebody that's going to hold up in court. I don't want it to be, your golfing buddy or your wife's friend or somebody. I want somebody that is valid, is going to be down the middle with the value, it's something we can count on, and we know where we stand. So we'd look at some different options as to how to value your house and get a sense of what it's worth. Once we have a better idea of what the house is worth, we're in a position of looking at, okay, how does that compare to what we owe, and what is this going to mean in a divorce case? So for example, let's say we bought the house during the marriage, we bought it together, it's worth about $300,000, we owe $200,000, that means there's $100,000 in equity. So if I'm planning on keeping it in the divorce, I got $100,000 equity, I need to most likely refinance the mortgage, remove my wife's name from the mortgage, and also borrow $50,000 additional money. So now I gotta borrow $250,000 on the home, and I pay my wife $50,000. So I keep the home, she gets $50,000. That's considered an equitable. That's a fair result. We're both kind of being getting what we have coming out of this house. So that's one way to look at it. So you'd want to look at things like, am I able to afford this payment? Where's my mortgage payment at this point? How much do I owe? And what am I looking at from there? If I have to borrow additional money, can I afford this payment? If If I'm at $2,000 a month on a mortgage, maybe this isn't a good deal for me. I'm better off selling it, split the money, I'll go get someplace else to live. Or maybe this is a good, so you got to look at your options. What's a good scenario for you? What do you want to see happen as far as the home? So information is key. And again, the decision does not need to be made right away. If you have minor children, there's going to be a 6-month waiting period anyways, which means you got some time to start figuring this out. None of this has to be decided, of course, at the beginning. But these are things to keep in mind as it goes forward. What am I looking at? If I'm looking at maybe the agreement is we're going to sell the house, split the money, then I should be considering how I want to see that happen. What's the timing on that? How soon do we want to list it for sale? Is it a good time of year to sell? Like, let's say it's June and it's prime selling season. Or is it February and we're saying, you know, the divorce might be done here pretty soon, but I don't want this house being listed until summer or until whatever it is. So all things to consider there as far as timing. And again, what do you want to see happen? What are you looking at? There can be, certainly I may not know what I want to do with the house. I haven't thought about it. I'm not sure. I don't have all the facts. There's time to figure it out. It's a valid answer to say I don't know at this point. Something to consider. And if you have children, that may be affecting your decision too. What school district you live in? Can I get another house in the district? Or am I worried about where they're going to be going to school and where they're living? So those are all things you might want to be looking at when making decisions about what to do with a house in a divorce case. The theme, of course, is that 98% of these divorce cases are settled. So you're really looking at what do we want to be doing? What's the agreement going to be? What's a reasonable approach here? This isn't going to be something where you fight about it and a judge tells you what to do with the house. That's not normally what's going to happen or how this would go. So as far as looking at what to do with the house itself, you want to make sure your attorney's aware of any relevant facts to the history of where you got the house, where it came from, where was the down payment from, how did that all go. Because you can get into issues with houses and with real estate in a divorce case where there might be premarital property. Maybe I owned the house before we got married, and we haven't been married very long, and I'm saying, well, I should be able to just keep this house. This was all my money, and it was my house, and my wife didn't have really anything to do with it. Or maybe we've had the house a while, but we used money that was mine from before the marriage that was used for a down payment. So those kind of things are important to consider. Michigan is what's known as a dual property, equitable division of property state. We're not community property. So we do look at things like premarital money, where'd the money come from for the down payment, who bought the house, was money inherited, whatever it is that may have gone on. Those things could be relevant to a discussion in dividing real estate in your divorce case and looking at what to do with the house and who gets what. So in that sense, there also, maybe there's a prenuptial agreement, and then in that case, that may dictate what's going on with the house. It would be enforceable, and the prenups are valid in Michigan, so that's something you could expect to be following if you're looking at what to do with your home and what to do with the sale of real estate in a divorce. I think one other typical question we get, and something to keep in mind, is, should I move out of the home? Does my moving out of the home affect my rights towards the real estate? Meaning, if I move out, am I giving up my rights to the house? So that's not the case. You can live there, not live there. That's not going to really affect your rights towards the real estate. It has no effect on that. It may affect other things, like if you have children, it could affect what's going on with custody and parenting time and support and those things. But you moving out isn't going to mean you lose all rights to a home. That's a myth, and so we can rule that out. That's not a real concern. But the timing of when you move out or who moves out or the timing of when to sell it are definitely valid concerns and something to think about at the beginning of a divorce and during the divorce. So again, even if you have an agreement, we may need to be looking at what's going to go on. Let's say the agreement is we're going to sell the house. What is that going to mean? What are the details of the sale? Who are we using as a realtor? When do we want to sell it? There may be things that need to be done before the house can be sold. We may want to get a realtor's opinion. What's it going to cost to get this house ready for sale, instead of just guessing about whether we think we need new carpet or new paint or whatever it might be. We'd say, okay, well, what has to be done? What's the best plan here? If we're selling it and splitting the money, then we both have the same goal. We want to get the most money out of this house we can. How do we do that? What's our best path on that? So these are all things to consider here. Division of property also can be affected by what other property we have. Are there retirement accounts? Are there savings accounts? Are there investments? Are there things I can trade? If I owe my wife 50 grand and I can keep the house, maybe I can give her that from some other account and have that be equal. So those are all things to consider. I hope it's been helpful. Thank you.